Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Megan's Place Conversations on Healing. I'm really glad that you're here today. Today's episode is a guest conversation that I'm especially excited about because we're actually diving into a topic that impacts a lot of people, but isn't always talked about openly, which is mental health in the tech industry. Now, often when we think about tech, I feel like we think about innovation, being in a fast paced environment, productivity, and performance. But behind that, there's actually real people navigating stress, burnout, and pressure, and the challenge of maintaining balance in a constantly evolving field. So, in this conversation, we're going to be exploring what that actually looks like from the inside. How does mental health show up in the tech world, and what the pressures can feel like day to day, and what helps when things start to feel overwhelming? And I'm really grateful to have Cole with us here today to share his perspective and experience.
Yeah, how's it going, everyone? My name's Cole. I work in the technology field, specifically cybersecurity, in sales. So deal with a lot of C-level IT directors, that you could imagine. Specifically email security, network security, application security. And thanks for having me, Megan.
Of course. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. And I guess to start off, I'm wondering if you can walk us through your journey in tech a bit and how, if at all, your mental health or relationship with stress has changed since you started working in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So my introduction to technology was in college. I started an internship at a consulting company that acted as a managed service provider. Frequently we're going on site to companies who would outsource their IT to us, installing equipment, servers, etc., and doing some networking. Then I transitioned after graduation to the vendor side of things and sales. Um, Selling products to the companies I previously worked at. The relationship with mental health, I mean, yeah, it's been sales is stressful, naturally. You have a specific number to hit. You're quantified as a person on that number. Uh, and your worth as an employee, again, is quantified. So stress is usually pretty high. Um, so yeah, that's a bit about that.
Well, thanks for sharing that. It aligns really well with what I had thought going into this conversation of what some of those stressors might look like in the tech field. Um, and beyond that, too, I know tech is often described as a really fast paced and high pressure environment. So I'm curious what that has actually felt like for you day to day and how it's affected things like your stress, boundaries, or even your identity outside of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So the technology field is kind of characterized by rapid growth. And mediocre in the technology field just doesn't cut it. So a lot of the times you'll have, VPs and managers, pushing um, bold targets to hit. And being on the sales team, that is quite difficult. That absolutely contributes to the stress. And it is industry specific because of the, higher growth rates that are expected of being in the technology sector. As far as affecting my identity outside of work, I really try and segment and keep that separate from my, day to day, doing things like sticking to my hobbies and um, trying not to think about work as much as possible. But again, sometimes that is difficult. Sometimes you get the email notification or the phone call after hours that you just have to take, as there is, either a lot of money or a lot of people hinging on that phone call or email. So difficult, but possible.
Yeah, it sounds like you have found a really good way to find balance between the two. You know, you might be working in a fast-paced environment, but you're also able to find that separation and still engage with the things that you love doing outside of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and I guess that does bring me into my next question about when things get intense at work, what are some things that actually help you stay grounded? It could be like habits, boundaries, a mindset shift, um, or yeah, feel free to share anything that feels right for you on that.
Oh yeah. Frequently we'll have to the things that I find most helpful is just walking away from the screen. Sometimes you just have to get away. Uh, whether that be going to grab a coffee or taking a lap around the building itself. Getting outside. I call it touching grass. Getting into nature, looking at a tree, etc. I have about a .4 mile loop that I do. I try and do 3 to 4 a day, depending on my schedule, but it really is important not to immerse yourself too deeply in your work. I'm guessing a lot of people will say differently. They're probably your manager who wants you to work harder. But, you know, from a pure productivity standpoint, I feel like me managing my mental health the way I do makes me a more productive employee than if I sat in front of a screen all day.
Absolutely. And there's actually been a lot of research to prove that that is exactly true. A lot of people do benefit very well from having breaks within the day, especially going outside, walking, exercising, being in the sunshine, all have very positive effects on mental health. So, sounds like you're doing the right thing.
Good to hear.
And I'm curious for someone who it feels like they might be heading toward burnout or they're extremely stressed, especially if they're in the tech field, what do you think you would want them to hear?
Yeah, I mean that really is, in my opinion, an issue of perspective.
Hmm.
Um, if you are working to the point where work is not worth it, or you don't want to go anymore, there's probably something that is a deeper issue there, whether that be the schedule and tasks you're provided from management, or be it your own personal habits like taking those breaks, taking time off, and the like. I mean, I have struggled with burnout myself, and I have found the answers in those two examples I just gave. Whether, I just needed to take a long weekend after, 5 months of not having a day off, or take another lap around the building that day. I mean, it's not rocket science. Usually if you're feeling like that, it's likely indicative of a bad habit.
Yeah, that sounds makes a lot of sense to me. And, it sounds like too that no matter what is impacting that feeling, um, it sounds like you have at least found ways that you might be able to talk to someone about it or say that it were to be something that impacts you again. You might be able to bring up those issues and actually remedy them and really make some changes, whether it's in the way that you take breaks, even though it sounds like you do that part pretty well already, or whether it's in the way that you respond to tasks that you're assigned. And I know that
Yeah.
it's the same in a lot of different fields too.
But to jump in, I heard you allude to, talking to people. And if I didn't have the support web in place that I do today, that burnout would be inevitable. No matter if I walked around the building all day long, um, it would happen, so I'm definitely not trying to undermine the importance of that support web. Friends, family, and to be honest, therapy as well.
Absolutely. I mean, support is actually one of the biggest things that go towards helping someone stabilize when they're going through burnout. Even just having a friend to talk to, talking to your parents, whatever it might be, it can make such a positive impact. And I think that that is just such a good point to bring up. And, overall, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a bit about your experience with stress in the tech field, just your experience of working in such a high paced, high stress environment, and the ways that you have found that actually work really well to cope through it. So I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not all bad. It is stressful, but if I had to do it all again, I'd do it again. It keeps me busy, keeps me engaged. And yes, the stress does come with that, but if you do learn how to manage that, it's manageable.
Right. It's all about balance, right?
All about balance. Absolutely right.
Well, thank you again, Cole. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to Megan's Place Conversations on Healing. We will see you again the Monday after next for another conversation about mental health.